What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the best Shockwave warrior build in Path of Exile 2. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of the setup. Then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for both the mid game and end game. And then finally we will go over the passive tree, attributes, your skill rotations, and even what Atlas passive should you use. So we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. If you are looking for this build on the website, then click my link in this video description or the pinned comment. This setup's main focus is to run and press from 1 to 2 skills and then target big enemy groups to then weaken them and explode. One of the most powerful skills that we have in our arsenal is the Shockwave totem, and as you can see from the gameplay, we are just running into the enemies and one-shotting them without even trying. Also, our Ancestral Warrior Totem and the Scavenge Plating makes the most out of this by effectively extending the damage of this hit many times over, in order to kill big targets like the bosses or tanky rare monsters. Of course, like most melee builds, the armor explosion was nerfed, but our particular setup wasn't impacted as much as other melee builds, so currently this is by far one of the best warrior builds in the game. If you are looking for a powerful auto AoV machine to target enemies and delete them in split seconds, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the warrior, and our Ascendancy is the Warbringer. Then for the first skill we have the Maze Strike with the support gem called the Rage, Armor Explosion, Magnified Effect, and the Primal Armament. And even after the new changes on how the Armor Breaker works, the Maze Strike still works perfectly fine, as long as you use it with the Cultist Great Hammer. Then second we got the Shockwave Totem with Inspiration, Close Combat, and Overpower. Then next we got the Scavenge Plating with the Precision, Vitality, and Clarity. Next we have the Ancestral Warrior Totem with the Sunder, Super Critical, and Overabundance. Next up we have the Time of the Need with Fast Forward, Herbalism, and Clarity. And finally for the last one we are using the Hammer of the Gods with Fist of War, Concentrated Effect, Exploit Weakness, and Heft. Most of this setup is structured around using the Shockwave Totem and the Maze Strike to delete enemies in split seconds. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their size and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. And as our build is already super broken, so we don't have to use more than these 6 active skill gems. Next we also have a leveling build, in case if you're starting your journey from level 0, and you just want to use it up until about level 25, where you should start getting our most important skills. So first off we are using the Rolling Slam with the support gem called the Rage and Overpower. And then next we have the Bone Shatter with just the Magnified Effect. This is your basic setup until you get our build's 2 most important skills. In the early stages of progression we are just using the Rolling Slam and the Bone Shatter as our main ability combo, as they're very powerful, especially at the beginning. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this melee damage node, and then go like this until we get all of these 4. So Brutal, Smash, Sturdy Metal, and Relentless. Then next up we want to go to this top right side like this, and then go to the left until we get this whole thing, so Ancestral Reach and the Supportive Ancestors. Next we circle back a little, and this time keep going until we reach the Devastation node. Then next up we keep going and take the right side, and then keep going more until we get both of these, so Carving Earth and Hardened Wood. Then now keep moving forwards until the end, and from here we want to get both of these totem nodes. Which side you choose first doesn't really matter as long as you get both of them. And then finally from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. Also, as far as attributes go, you just simply want to fulfill your attribute requirements to gear and skill gems, and then spend the rest of your leftover attributes into more strength. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Anvil's Weight, then second get the Imploding Impacts, then third we want the Answered Call, and then finally for the fourth option go with the Wooden Wall. In PoE2 earning skill points take a lot of hard work, so it will be very smart not to spend your points recklessly. Of course, you can refund your passive points later, but only at a cost, so following a specific setup is extremely useful. If you are following this build, then make sure to not to deviate from it, as some of the decisions that I made might not make sense at first, but is going to pay off later. So feel free to use the exact same path as I have right here. And don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website, and this should make it easier for you to follow the tree. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus stats that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. Our warrior build is also great at single target DPS, so we can also spend a bit points into farming boss maps or essences. So when we start, we want to first of all get to this bottom right side like this. Then from here we want to go until we get all the way to this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. Then next we go back to the middle, and this time take the bottom left side and get all of these passives. And then when all of these are done, then now we go again to the middle and now take the middle path and unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Cultist Great Hammer, which is special, because its base stat does that our strike now deals splash damage to the targets within 1.8 meter range. And as I said, after the new changes to how the armor breaker works, the mace strike will now still work perfectly fine, but you specifically have to use this weapon, or otherwise switch the mace strike skill for something different like the Stampede. And then for bonus stats we want increased physical damage, more armor, and more levels of all melee skills. Then for the helmet we have the Warrior Great Helm with armor. And for more we want max life, more accuracy, more intelligence, and fire resistance. Then for chest we have the advanced full plate with armor. And for more we need max life, armor, and cold resistance. Then for the belt we have the Rawhide belt with 20% quicker flask recovery. And for bonus stats we want max life, more armor, and +2 to charm slots. Then for gloves we got the Interested gloves with energy shield, and for more we need max life, max mana, and more levels to all melee skills. Then for boots we are using the advanced bronze greaves with armor, and for more we for sure want increased movement speed, and then also max life and resistances like cold and fire. Then for our first ring we got the ruby ring with fire resistance, and for more we'd want add physical damage, more intelligence, and lightning resistance. While on the second one we have the topaz ring with lightning resistance. And for more we need max life, max mana, more strength, and chaos resistance. And then finally for the amulet we got the crimson amulet with life regen per second. And for more we want max life, more armor, more dexterity, and fire resistance. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. Then next we have runes. During early item progression, most gear is socketed with resistant runes like the Desert Rune, Glacial Rune, or the Storm Rune. However, once your elemental resistances have been capped and elemental resistant runes are no longer necessary, you then want to opt in to increase your maximum life with body runes or consider socketing a soul core. So on our weapon we're using the Iron Rune, then on our helmet we have the Glacial Rune, and then lastly on the rest of our equipment we're using the Storm Rune. And as far as getting this gear goes, by far the best way to get better gear in the campaign is to check the vendor in the town each time you level up, as vendors can change their offerings based on your level, so this is the best way to find upgrades. And then after level 65 you just want to keep continuing repeating your maps until tier 16. And again, for more in-depth tutorial, check out my gearing guide video. Then on top of this, we need to quickly look into the charms. Charms are incredibly useful, as by having the right one equipped at the right time can save you from dying. If you are struggling with certain bosses, then look into what damage type they are using, and then use that specific charm to increase your resistance. For me personally, I like to use the Amethyst charm for chaos damage, then the Ruby charm for fire damage, and finally Sapphire charm for cold damage. But as I said, which one you choose will entirely depend on the enemies that you are fighting, so feel free to experiment and mix and match. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. And to be honest, because of our setup, this build will be extremely powerful, no matter in what order you use your skills. But if you're interested in the most optimized damage rotation, then here it is. So for both clearing and bossing, you want to place down your Shockwave totem, and Ancestral Warrior, which is linked with the Sunder totem. And then you can also use the Mace Strike to get a bit of extra damage in, and then later to generate Rage as well. And finally, when you are at high tier maps and at the full endgame, you'll also be wanting to use the Hammer of the Gods on stunned bosses. But since it relies on having more than just plus levels to all melee skills on your weapon, so it might not deal as much damage for you as it does for other builds. And that's why our main objective will be to focusing on crazy AoE damage and less at single targets. So let me know what you think about this build in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, then you definitely don't want to miss my top 3 best builds video, where I showed even more powerful builds. So click the screen now and I'll see you in the next one.